There was once a boy who could not speak. Until he was almost 3 years old, he said almost nothing. His parents were worried. The doctors were puzzled. The neighbors whispered. Some people believed there was something wrong with him, something broken. They thought he might never be normal. His own family gave him a nickname. They called him the Quiet One. This boy struggled in school. One of his teachers looked him in the eye and said, "You will never amount to anything. You are a disgrace." He failed an important entrance exam. He was rejected from job after job after job. For years, he could not find work in the field he loved. He ended up taking a small, ordinary job checking paperwork in a government office. By every measure the world used, this boy was a failure. And yet, today, his name is the very definition of the word genius. When someone is brilliant, we say, "He's a real Einstein." His face is one of the most recognized faces in human history. His ideas changed how we understand time itself, space itself, light itself, the entire universe. The quiet boy who could not speak, the failure, the reject, the disgrace, became one of the greatest minds who has ever lived. His name was Albert Einstein, and tonight I am going to tell you his story. Not just because it is amazing, though it is, but because if you are learning English right now, if you are struggling, if you feel slow, if someone has ever told you that you are not smart enough, then this story is for you. Because Einstein was told all of those things too, and he proved every single one of them wrong. So stay with me all the way to the end. Because by the end of this video, two things will happen. Your English will be stronger, and so will your belief in what is possible for your life. Let us begin. Before I start, I want to ask you for one small thing. If this story inspires you tonight, if it teaches you something, or makes you feel something, please tap the red subscribe button. Just one tap. It is the smallest thing in the world, but for me, it means everything. Because I make these videos for people like you, people who want to learn English, people who refuse to give up, people who believe they can build a better life. If you subscribe, the next story will find you exactly when you need it. And if you can, tap the like button too. It tells me to keep going. It tells me these stories matter. That is all I ask. Now let me take you back to Germany, to the year 1879, to the birth of a very unusual baby. Albert Einstein was born on the 14th of March, 1879, in a small town in Germany called Ulm. His parents were ordinary people. His father, Hermann, was a businessman who worked with electrical equipment. His mother, Pauline, stayed home and cared for the family. She loved music. She loved books. She filled the house with the sound of the piano. When Albert was born, there was nothing special about him, except for one strange detail. His head was unusually large. It was so large that the family actually worried about it. They joked, nervously, wondering if the baby was healthy, if he would grow up to be a normal child. They had no idea. They had no idea that, inside that large head, was a mind that would one day reshape the entire world. But the worries did not stop there. Because as Albert grew from a baby into a small child, his parents noticed something else. He did not talk. Most children begin to speak around 1 year old. A few words. Mama, Papa, simple things. But Albert was silent. 1 year passed. Still almost nothing. 2 years passed. Still very few words. He was almost 3 years old before he truly began to speak. His parents were frightened. Was their son slow? Was something wrong with his mind? The family began to call him the Quiet One. But here is the truth. Albert was not quiet because he was slow. Albert was quiet because he was thinking. While other children chatted and played, little Albert would sit and watch and observe the world around him with deep, serious eyes, as if he were trying to understand how everything worked. He was not behind the other children. He was somewhere else entirely. He was already, even as a tiny child, looking at the world more deeply than the people around him. Let me stop here for just a moment, because there is something important in this. The world looked at little Albert and saw a problem. A slow child. A quiet child. Something wrong. But the world was completely wrong. What looked like a weakness, his silence was actually the beginning of his greatest strength. He was quiet because his mind was working in a deeper way. My friend, listen to me. Sometimes, the things that make you different, the things people criticize, the things that seem like weaknesses, are actually your hidden gifts. Maybe you are quiet. Maybe you are slow to speak. Maybe you do not learn the way others learn. Maybe people have made you feel that something is wrong with you. But what if it is not a weakness? What if it is the seed of your greatness, and the world simply cannot see it yet? The world could not see it in Einstein. Do not let the world's judgment become your own. Now let us continue. When Albert was 5 years old, his father gave him a small gift. It was a simple object, a compass. A small metal compass with a needle inside that always pointed in the same direction, north. To most children, it would have been a boring little toy. But for Albert, it was magic. He turned it one way. The needle pointed north. He turned it the other way. The needle still pointed north. He spun it around and around. And no matter what he did, no matter how he moved it, the needle always returned to the same direction. Albert was amazed. How? How could this happen? There was no string pulling the needle. There was no visible hand moving it. And yet, some invisible force was guiding it, always toward the north. He stared at the compass for hours. He could not stop thinking about it. And in that moment, something woke up inside little Albert. He realized for the first time that there were invisible forces in the world, hidden powers working behind the surface of everyday life. Things you could not see, but that were absolutely real. And he wanted to understand them, all of them. Years later, as a grown man, Einstein said that this experience left a deep and lasting impression on him. A tiny compass, a 5-year-old boy, and the beginning of one of the greatest scientific journeys in human history. It all started with a child wondering about something invisible. When Albert started school, things did not go well. Not at all. In those days, German schools were extremely strict. Students were expected to sit still, to be silent, to obey, and above all, to memorize. The teachers would give the students facts, and the students were expected to repeat those facts back, exactly, without question. But this was the opposite of how Albert's mind worked. Albert did not want to memorize. Albert wanted to understand. He wanted to ask questions. Why? How? What if? He wanted to take ideas apart and look inside them and discover how they really worked. But the teachers did not want questions. The teachers wanted obedience. And so Albert and his teachers clashed, again and again. The teachers thought he was difficult, disrespectful, a troublemaker. One teacher, and imagine saying this to a child, one teacher told young Albert, "You will never amount to anything. You are a disgrace." Think about those words. "You will never amount to anything," said to the boy who would grow up to become the most famous genius in history. Those words must have hurt deeply, the way cruel words always hurt a child. But Albert did not let them stop him. And this is one of the most important lessons of his whole life. My friend, I need you to hear this. Somewhere in your life, someone may have said something like that to you. You're not smart enough. You'll never succeed. You're not good at this. Give up. Maybe it was a teacher, maybe a parent, maybe a friend, or a boss, or someone you trusted. And maybe those words are still inside you, still hurting, still whispering to you, late at night. When you doubt yourself, I want you to remember something. The teacher who told Einstein he was a disgrace, that teacher was wrong. Completely, totally, historically wrong. The people who judge you do not decide your future. You decide your future. Einstein heard, "You will never amount to anything," and he went on to change the world. So whatever cruel words are inside you, let them go. They are not the truth about you. They are only the opinion of someone who could not see who you really were. Now, it is true Albert struggled with some subjects in school. He was not good at everything. Languages were hard for him. He found them boring and difficult. But there was one subject he loved more than anything in the world: mathematics. To Albert, mathematics was not boring at all. It was beautiful. It was thrilling. He called it the language of the universe. He loved solving math problems the way other children loved playing games. To him, every problem was a puzzle, waiting to be solved. Every equation was a small mystery, hiding a secret. And he had help. His uncle Jacob loved mathematics too, and Jacob taught Albert in a fun, creative, playful way, not like the strict teachers at school. Uncle Jacob once told him something Albert never forgot. He said, "Mathematics is like a treasure hunt. Every problem is a clue, and each clue leads you closer to the treasure, the solution." A treasure hunt. That single idea that learning could be an adventure, a hunt for hidden treasure, made Albert fall completely in love with numbers. And here is another lesson, my friend. Albert did not love math because someone forced him to. He loved it because someone made it joyful, because his uncle showed him that learning could be play, could be adventure, could be fun. If you are struggling to learn, including learning English, try to find the joy in it. Try to make it a treasure hunt, not a chore. When learning becomes play, you become unstoppable. That is what happened to young Albert. His mother, Pauline, also believed in him. She had noticed his love of music, and she encouraged him to learn the violin. At first, Albert did not enjoy it. Practicing was hard. He wanted to quit. But over time, something changed. Music became a part of him. It became a way to relax, a way to calm his busy mind, a way, even, to think more clearly. For the rest of his life, Einstein loved the violin. When he was stuck on a difficult problem, when his mind hit a wall, he would pick up his violin and play. And often, while playing, the answer would come to him. Music and mathematics, together, shaped the way he thought. Albert was not like other children. While they played games in the street, he spent hours reading books and imagining how the world worked. He loved stories about great scientists. He dreamed of making discoveries of his own. And one day, walking home from school, a strange question came into his mind. A question that would stay with him for the rest of his life. He asked himself, what would it be like to ride on a beam of light? Imagine that. A teenage boy, walking home, wondering what it would feel like to travel alongside a ray of light. To ride it, like riding a horse. To move as fast as light moves. It was a strange, wild, beautiful question. And most people would have forgotten it in a moment. But Albert did not forget it. That single question, what would it be like to ride a beam of light, became the beginning of a journey that would, years later, completely change how humanity understands light and space and time itself. The greatest discoveries often begin with the simplest questions. And the most important thing is not just to ask the question, but to never stop wondering about it. When Albert was 15, his life took a hard turn. His father's business failed. The family had to move away to Italy to start over. But Albert was left behind, alone, in Germany, to finish his schooling. He was miserable. He hated the strict school. He hated the harsh teachers. And now he was separated from his family, living alone, feeling lonely and unhappy. Finally, Albert made a bold and risky decision. He left school, without finishing, without a diploma. He simply could not stand it anymore. The rules, the memorizing, the teachers who did not understand him. Many people thought he had destroyed his future. A boy who leaves school without graduating? In those days, that was almost unthinkable. People believed he had thrown his life away. But Albert did not see it that way. He believed that real learning was more important than following rules. He believed he could teach himself. And so he did. He began to study on his own. He read books on science, on philosophy, on mathematics. He taught himself everything he was hungry to know, not because a teacher forced him, but because he truly wanted to understand. This tells us something powerful about Einstein. He was not motivated by grades, or diplomas, or pleasing his teachers. He was motivated by genuine curiosity. He learned because he loved learning. Because he could not stop wondering about the universe. And that kind of learning, the learning that comes from real curiosity, is the most powerful kind there is. It is exactly the kind of learning you are doing right now, by choosing to watch this video, not because anyone is forcing you, but because you want to grow. That is the Einstein way. At 16, Albert wrote his first scientific paper. It was not perfect, he was still young, but it showed something remarkable, a mind that was already reaching toward the deepest questions of physics. He decided to apply to a famous, prestigious school in Switzerland, the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School. It was one of the best science schools in all of Europe. He took the entrance exam, and he failed. He did brilliantly on the math and physics sections, but he failed the other parts, French, history, languages, the subjects he had always struggled with. He was rejected. Imagine how that felt. A brilliant young mind, who loved science more than anything, rejected from the very school he dreamed of attending. Many people would have given up. Many people would have decided, I am not good enough. This is not for me. But Albert did not give up. Instead, he did something different. He looked honestly at his weaknesses, the subjects he had failed, and he decided to work on them. He spent a year studying harder than ever before, improving the very areas where he was weak, refusing to let one failure define him. And here, my friend, is one of the most important lessons of Einstein's entire life. Failure was not the end for him. Failure was just information. It showed him what he needed to work on. He did not say, I failed, so I am a failure. He said, I failed, so now I know what to improve. Do you see the difference? One way of thinking destroys you. The other way of thinking makes you stronger. When you fail at something, and you will, we all do not let it define you. Let it teach you. Let it show you what to work on next. That is what Einstein did. And 1 year later, he took the exam again. This time he passed. So Albert went to study at the Polytechnic in the city of Zurich, in Switzerland. Switzerland was different from Germany. The schools were less strict. Students were encouraged to think freely, to ask questions, to explore. This was exactly what Albert needed. And yet, even here, at one of the best schools in Europe, Albert did not fit in perfectly. He loved mathematics and physics, but he had little interest in his other subjects. He often skipped lectures. Instead of following the official lessons, he studied on his own, exploring the deep questions that fascinated him. His professors did not always understand him. Some of them did not even like him. One professor told him, "You are a clever boy, Einstein, but you lack discipline." While his classmates carefully followed the curriculum, Albert was off in his own world, asking enormous questions. What is light? How does time work? Why does gravity exist? These were not ordinary student questions. These were questions that the greatest scientists in the world did not yet have answers to. But Albert could not stop asking them. It was during these years that Albert met someone important. Her name was Mileva Maric. She was the only woman studying physics in his class. In those days, it was extremely rare for a woman to study science at all. She had to fight and work twice as hard just to be allowed in the room. Mileva was brilliant, and she shared Albert's deep passion for science. The two of them became close. They spent hours together, discussing scientific theories, dreaming about discoveries they might one day make. Mileva was more than a classmate to Albert. She became his closest companion, someone who understood him, someone who shared his dreams. Albert once wrote to her, "Together, we will conquer the world of science." But their path was not easy. Mileva faced constant criticism, simply for being a woman in a man's field. And Albert faced serious money problems. Still, they supported each other. they believed in each other, and they kept their eyes fixed on their dreams. In 1900, at the age of 21, Albert graduated with a degree in physics. He was thrilled. Finally, he could begin his career as a scientist, but life had other plans. Because Albert could not find a job, he applied to university after university, hoping to become a professor or a researcher, and he was rejected every single time. Why? Because his professors would not give him good recommendations. They remembered the student who skipped their lectures, who questioned their methods, who lacked discipline. They thought he was lazy and unmotivated. So when Albert asked them to recommend him for jobs, they refused or wrote cold, unhelpful letters. Imagine this: you work hard for years, you earn your degree, you are brilliant, and then you face rejection. After rejection, after rejection, doors closing in your face, no one willing to give you a chance. This was a dark, painful time for Albert, but he did not give up. He took whatever work he could find, just to survive. Small jobs, temporary jobs, anything to keep going. And then, in 1902, he finally found steady work. But it was not the job he dreamed of. It was a job as a clerk. In the Swiss Patent Office, in the city of Bern, his task was to read patent applications, descriptions of new inventions, and decide whether each invention was truly original. It had nothing to do with physics, nothing to do with his dreams. It was ordinary paperwork, day after day after day. At first, Albert was disappointed. He had wanted to be a scientist, and here he was, a clerk, stamping papers. But then Albert did something brilliant. He changed how he saw his situation. Instead of complaining about his boring job, Albert found the hidden gift inside it. The patent office job was not hard. He was fast and clever, so he could finish his daily work quickly. And that left him something precious: time, free time, hours every day, sitting at his desk, with his mind free to wander. So while he reviewed inventions, Albert would secretly think about physics. He would scribble equations on small pieces of paper. He would imagine light and time and space. He would chase the great questions that had been burning inside him since he was a boy. He even gave the patent office a private nickname. He called it his thinking lab. Think about that. Most people would have seen that job as a prison, a dead end, a daily reminder of their failed dreams. But Albert saw it as a laboratory, a quiet place where, between stamping papers, he could think the deepest thoughts any human had ever thought. This is one of the most powerful lessons in his whole life, my friend. It is not always about what happens to you. It is about how you choose to see it. Two people can have the exact same job. One sees a prison, the other sees an opportunity. One complains, the other creates. Albert was stuck in an ordinary job, far from his dreams. And inside that ordinary job, quietly, secretly, he built the ideas that would change the world. Wherever you are right now, even if it feels small, even if it feels far from your dreams, there may be a hidden gift in it. Time, a lesson, a chance to prepare. Look for the gift, the way Einstein did. In 1903, Albert married Mileva. It was a simple wedding. They did not have much money, but they were together, and they shared the same dream. Soon after, they had their first child, a baby boy, named Hans Albert. But life was hard. Albert's small salary as a clerk was barely enough to support a family. They lived in a tiny apartment. They struggled, every month, to pay for what they needed. Albert's friends gave him advice. They said, "Albert, be realistic. Give up these dreams of physics. Focus on your job, earn more money, take care of your family." It was sensible advice, safe advice, but Albert refused. He said something that I want you to remember. He said, "I would rather struggle for my passion than live comfortably without purpose." Read that again. I would rather struggle for my passion than live comfortably without purpose. He chose meaning over comfort. He chose his dream over an easy life. And because he made that choice, because he refused to give up, even when it was hard, Even when sensible people told him to quit, the world was about to change forever. The year was 1905. Albert was 26 years old, still just a clerk in the patent office, still unknown, still struggling with money. And in this one single year, working alone, in his spare time, with no laboratory, no team, no university position, Albert Einstein published a series of scientific papers that shook the entire world. Scientists today have a special name for this year. They call it Einstein's Miracle Year. Let me tell you what he discovered. First, he explained something called the photoelectric effect. He showed that light, which everyone thought was a simple wave, actually behaves like tiny particles, little packets of energy. This was a revolutionary idea, and years later, it would win him the Nobel Prize. Second, he proved that atoms are real. Today, we all know that everything is made of atoms. But back then, many scientists were not even sure that atoms truly existed. Einstein proved that they did. And third, most famous of all, he introduced his special theory of relativity. This was the big one. For hundreds of years, everyone believed that time was fixed, absolute, the same for everyone, everywhere. 1 second was 1 second for all people, in all places. Einstein showed that this was wrong. He showed that time and space are not fixed. They are relative. They can stretch. They can bend. Time can move faster or slower, depending on how you are moving. It sounds impossible. It sounds like science fiction, but it was true. And it completely changed how humanity understands reality itself. And out of this theory came the most famous equation in all of history. E equals mc squared. 5 simple symbols. But they revealed something astonishing, that energy and matter are actually the same thing, able to transform into each other, that a tiny bit of matter contains an enormous amount of energy. This single equation would later lead to nuclear power and, sadly, to the atomic bomb. Now, stop and think about what had just happened. A humble clerk, working in a patent office, with no fancy job, no laboratory, no money, no support. In his spare time, between stamping papers, this ordinary man had just rewritten the laws of the universe. It is one of the most incredible achievements in human history, and it proves something I want you to never forget. You do not need perfect conditions to do great things. You do not need to be rich. You do not need a fancy title. You do not need other people's permission, or approval, or support. Einstein had none of those things. He had only his mind, his curiosity, his determination, and a little bit of free time, which he refused to waste. What could you do with your mind, your curiosity, your determination, and the small bits of free time in your own life? Einstein's answer was, change the world. What will yours be? After 1905, everything began to change. Slowly at first, then faster and faster, scientists around the world began to notice Albert's work. They read his papers. They were amazed. Who was this man? Where had he come from? He began to receive offers, real offers to teach, to research, to become a professor at universities. Finally, after all the years of rejection and struggle, his genius was being recognized. By 1909, he was a professor at the University of Zurich. Then he taught in Prague. His reputation grew across all of Europe. People began to call him a genius, but Albert stayed humble. He once said something beautiful about this. He said, "I am no genius. I am simply curious. I stay with questions longer than other people do." I love that. He did not say, "I am smarter than everyone." He said, "I am simply more curious. I do not give up on a question. I stay with it longer." That is a kind of genius that anyone can develop, my friend. You may or may not be born brilliant, but anyone can choose to be curious. Anyone can choose to stay with a problem longer, to not give up, to keep asking questions until the answer comes. That is what made Einstein who he was. Not just raw intelligence, but curiosity that never quit. Even as he became famous, Albert never cared about money or appearances. He continued to live a simple life. He wore the same old clothes. He did not care about being fashionable or wealthy. He cared only about his work and about understanding the universe. In 1914, he moved to Berlin, in Germany, to take an important position. Now, he finally had the freedom and the resources to focus entirely on his research. But the world around him was about to explode. That same year, World War I broke out. It was a terrible war. Millions of people died. And many scientists, swept up in patriotism, supported the fighting. But not Albert. Albert spoke out against the war. He believed in peace. He believed that violence was never the answer. And even though it was unpopular, even though it was dangerous to speak against the war, he used his growing influence to call for peace and understanding between nations. This took real courage. It is easy to go along with the crowd. It is hard to stand alone and say, "This is wrong," when everyone around you disagrees. But Albert did it. His mind was great, but his conscience, his courage to stand up for what was right, was just as great. During these years, Albert's marriage to Mileva fell apart. The pressures of fame, the years of financial struggle, the distance that had grown between them, all of it was too much. In 1919, they divorced. It was painful. But Albert made sure that Mileva and their 2 sons were always financially cared for. And in that very same year, 1919, something incredible happened that would make Albert Einstein the most famous scientist on Earth. Let me explain. Years earlier, in 1915, Albert had completed an even bigger theory, his general theory of relativity. In it, he made an astonishing prediction. He said that gravity could actually bend light, that the gravity of a huge object, like the sun, could bend the path of light passing near it. It sounded crazy. How could gravity bend light? But Einstein's math said it was true. The problem was, how could anyone prove it? The answer came in 1919. British scientists organized an experiment. During a solar eclipse, when the moon covers the sun and the sky goes dark in daytime, they measured the light of distant stars passing near the sun. And they discovered something amazing. The light had bent, exactly the way Einstein had predicted. His theory was correct. Gravity really could bend light. The universe really did work, the way this one man had imagined it, sitting alone with his equations. The news spread across the world like wildfire. Newspapers everywhere printed enormous headlines. Einstein's theory proven true. And, for the first time in history, a scientist became a global celebrity. Albert Einstein, the boy who could not speak, the student called a disgrace. The reject who could not find a job was suddenly the most famous man on the planet. People who knew nothing about physics knew his name. His face appeared everywhere. Crowds gathered just to see him. He was treated like a king. When someone asked him how he felt about his sudden fame, Albert gave a witty, clever answer that showed both his humor and the prejudice he faced as a Jewish man. He said, "If my theory is proven right, Germany will claim me as a German, and France will say, I am a citizen of the world. But if my theory is proven wrong, France will say I am a German, and Germany will say I am a Jew." It was funny, but underneath the humor was a serious truth about how the world would embrace him in success, but reject him the moment it was convenient. Albert understood the world clearly, even at the height of his fame. In the 1920s, Albert traveled all over the world. He gave lectures in many countries. He visited the United States. He visited Japan. He visited far corners of the earth, sharing his ideas and inspiring a new generation of young thinkers. Everywhere he went, crowds gathered to see him. He was no longer just a scientist. He was a symbol of human genius, of imagination, of what one mind could achieve. But Albert did not use his fame just for science. He used it to fight for peace. The world had just been through one terrible war. Albert was determined to help prevent another. He spoke out, again and again, for peace between nations. He said something I want you to remember. He said, peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. He also became a voice for people who had no voice. He spoke up for the rights of minorities. He spoke up for refugees, for people forced to flee their homes. He used his enormous fame to defend the weak and to challenge injustice wherever he saw it. But not everyone admired him. As his fame grew, so did the criticism. Some people said he was too idealistic, too much of a dreamer. Others tried to tear down his work out of jealousy or prejudice. How did Albert respond to his critics? With grace, and with one of his wisest sayings. He said, "Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds." Think about that. Great minds, people with big, bold, new ideas, have always been attacked by smaller minds, people who cannot create, but who love to criticize, people who fear anything new. If you ever try to do something great, my friend, if you ever chase a big dream, you will face this too. People will doubt you. People will criticize you. Some people will even try to tear you down. Do not let them stop you. Remember Einstein's words. The opposition you face is often a sign that you are doing something that matters, something the small minds cannot understand. Keep going anyway. Then, in 1933, everything changed. A dark and evil power was rising in Germany. The Nazi regime had taken control, and they were filled with hatred, especially hatred of Jewish people. Albert Einstein was Jewish. Suddenly, the most famous scientist in the world was in terrible danger. In his own country, the Nazis turned against him. They burned his books in great fires. They called his brilliant discoveries Jewish science and rejected them. They threatened his life. Some even offered money for his death. Albert had no choice. He had to flee. He left Germany, the country of his birth, and he never returned. He moved across the ocean to the United States, to a town called Princeton in New Jersey, where he joined a famous center for research called the Institute for Advanced Study. His heart was broken by what was happening in Germany. The country he had grown up in had fallen into darkness and cruelty. But even in this dark time, Albert held on to hope. He said something that has comforted millions of people ever since. He said, "In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity." What a powerful idea! Even in his hardest moment, forced from his home, his books burning, his life in danger, Albert chose to look for the opportunity hidden inside the difficulty. And he found it. He began a new life in America. In 1940, he became an American citizen. And he spent the rest of his life in the United States, free, safe, and still working, still thinking, still wondering about the universe. When life knocks you down, my friend, when you face your own dark times, try to remember these words. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. The difficulty is real, but so is the opportunity. You just have to look for it. Then came the most painful chapter of Einstein's life. During World War II, the world's most destructive weapon was being created: the atomic bomb. Now, Albert did not build the bomb. He had no direct role in making it. But his famous equation E=mc² was the scientific foundation that made nuclear weapons possible. In 1945, atomic bombs were dropped on two Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The destruction was beyond imagination. Hundreds of thousands of people died. When Albert learned what had happened, he was devastated. He was heartbroken to know that his work born out of pure curiosity, out of love for understanding the universe, had been used to create something so terrible. For the rest of his life, he carried this sorrow, and he spent his remaining years fighting against nuclear weapons, speaking out, again and again, for peace and for nuclear disarmament, begging the nations of the world to never use such weapons again. This is a deep and important part of his story. Albert Einstein learned, in the most painful way, that knowledge is powerful, but that power can be used for good or for evil. He had discovered something beautiful, and it had been turned into something destructive. It tormented him, but he did not hide from it. He took responsibility. He used his voice for the rest of his life to try to prevent more suffering. His genius gave the world great gifts, but his conscience, his deep care for humanity, was just as great as his genius. Even as one of the most famous people on the entire planet, Albert lived a wonderfully simple, humble life. He did not care about money. He did not care about fancy things. He refused to own a car. He famously did not like to wear socks and simply stopped wearing them. He loved to sail small boats, even though, amusingly, he never learned how to swim. He wore the same comfortable old clothes. He kept his wild, messy hair. He cared nothing for fashion or appearances. What he cared about, all he cared about, was understanding the universe and helping humanity, and his curiosity never, ever faded. Even as an old man, he kept asking questions about the nature of black holes, about the possibility of time travel, about the deepest mysteries of space and time. In his final years, he worked on his most ambitious dream of all, to unite all the forces of nature into a single, beautiful theory. It was a problem so difficult that, even today, the greatest scientists in the world have not solved it. He never solved it either. But he never stopped trying. He worked on it until his very last breath. On the 18th of April 1955, Albert Einstein passed away. He was 76 years old. At the very end, alone with a nurse, he spoke his final words. But here is a strange and poignant detail. His last words were spoken in German, and the nurse beside him did not understand German. So Albert Einstein's final words, the last thoughts of one of the greatest minds in human history, were lost forever. No one will ever know what he said. There is something deeply human about that. The man who had explained the secrets of the universe, whose mind had reached across space and time, left this world with one final mystery. A few words, spoken into the air, and gone. The town of Princeton mourned. The whole world mourned. A great light had gone out. But, like all true greatness, his light did not really go out at all. Because his ideas live on. His discoveries still shape our world every single day. The technology in your phone, the understanding of our universe, the very way we think about time and space and light, all of it carries the fingerprints of Albert Einstein. And his story, the story of the quiet boy who became a genius, still inspires millions of people all over the world, including you, tonight. So, what can we learn from the life of Albert Einstein? Let me share 3 lessons. 3 gifts that his life gives to you. The first lesson is this: your struggles can shape your greatness. Einstein faced rejection. He faced ridicule. He was called a disgrace. He failed exams. He could not find a job. He fled his homeland. He lived through war and heartbreak. And every one of those struggles became part of what made him great. Your struggles, too, are not meaningless. They are shaping you. They are preparing you. The hard times you are going through right now may one day become the foundation of your greatest achievements. The second lesson is this: curiosity drives everything. Einstein said he was not a genius, only that he was curious, and that he stayed with questions longer than others. You do not have to be the smartest person in the room. You only have to be curious, to keep asking questions, to keep wondering, to keep learning the way you are learning English right now. Curiosity is a kind of magic that anyone can choose, and it can take you anywhere. The third lesson is this: humility is powerful. Einstein was the most famous scientist in the world, and yet he wore old clothes, refused fancy cars, and never stopped seeing himself as a simple, curious human being. True greatness, his life shows us, is not about showing off. It is not about wealth, or fame, or appearances. True greatness lies in simplicity, in staying grounded, in caring about what truly matters: knowledge, kindness, and the good of humanity. My friend, I want to speak to you directly now. Before this video ends, Because Einstein's story is not really about a man who lived long ago. It is about you. Think about how he began. A child who could not speak. A boy whose own family worried something was wrong with him. A student told by his teacher, "You will never amount to anything." A young man rejected from school, rejected from job after job, stuck in an ordinary clerk's office, far from his dreams. By every measure the world used, he was nobody. He was a failure, and he became the symbol of human genius for all time. Now think about yourself. Maybe you feel ordinary. Maybe you feel slow. Maybe someone has told you that you are not smart enough, not good enough, that you will never succeed. Maybe you are struggling right now, with English, with money, with doubt, with a dream that feels too big for someone like you. Einstein was exactly there. And his life is living proof of something I want you to carry with you, always. It does not matter where you start. It does not matter what people say about you. It does not matter how many times you fail, or how many doors close in your face. What matters is your curiosity, your persistence, your refusal to give up. You have a mind, you have dreams, you have the ability to learn, to grow, to become far more than anyone, including you, currently imagines. The quiet boy proved the whole world wrong. So can you. If this story inspired you tonight even a little, then please do these small things for me. Tap the like button so I know this message reached your heart. Leave a comment below and tell me what is one dream you refuse to give up on. Say it out loud. Write it down. Let the world see it. And subscribe to this channel and turn on the bell, because we are on a journey together. A journey of learning English. A journey of growing stronger. A journey of becoming the people we were always meant to be. I make these videos for you. For the dreamers, for the ones who were told they were not enough and who are going to prove the world wrong. If you want more stories like this, true stories that teach you English and feed your soul at the same time, then this is your home. Subscribe and stay with me. I want to leave you with Einstein's own words. The words he spoke near the end of his life, perhaps the wisest thing he ever said. He said, "Try not to become a person of success, but rather try to become a person of value." Think about that. As you drift towards sleep tonight, or as you go about your day, do not just chase success, money, fame, things. Chase value. Become someone who matters. Someone who helps others. Someone who makes the world a little better, a little kinder, a little wiser. That is what Einstein did. And that far more than his equations, far more than his fame, is why we still love him and still tell his story today. The quiet boy who could not speak, the failure who became a genius, the man who changed the world and never stopped being curious, humble, and kind. His name was Albert Einstein, and now his story lives in you. Go and become a person of value. I will see you in the next video. Until then, stay curious, keep learning, and never, ever stop believing in yourself.